It was my mother's 80th birthday this week, and so we gathered to celebrate her birthday at one of her favorite places, the bingo hall. I was expecting that it would be a nice, relaxing morning, actually, with my mother. By the end of it, I think my blood pressure was through the roof, and I was just stressed out. Do not be fooled by the cognitive processing power of grandmas. They may seem slow, but they can work dozens of strips of cards at a bingo hall with no problem. And so there I was, all stressed out. I'm sure if I were wearing like a heart rate monitor from when I go cycling, it would have been entertaining just to watch the graph that would come up on it. In my stress, I think the cause of my stress was, I looked around at all of these grandmas and I said to myself, well, if they can do it, how hard can it be? I can do it. And looking at them and comparing myself, I thought, okay, I'll take some more cards. I can handle this. As you can well imagine, that did not work. If John the Baptist were sitting beside me at the bingo hall, this is the question he'd have asked me. When is it enough? What is enough? Not just how many bingo cards are enough. I mean, I found out the answer to that. Fewer than what I tried to work. But when is it enough to be satisfied with what I have? John the Baptist would have brought into my awareness that I forgot. In my desire to compare myself to other people, I forgot about just my basic need in that moment. And what was my basic need in that moment? Just to have fun with my mother. Instead, I shifted from a sense of what do I need to what do I want, what do I desire, compared to other people. The good news is, at least at the end of the day, my mother was very entertained by it all, and I think she went away feeling her esteem was through the roof. It's like she's helping out her little boy. John the Baptist is telling the brood of vipers, and then telling me at the bingo hall, be satisfied with what you have. Know when it is enough so that you don't lose sight of what it means to, in my case, share a fun moment with my mother on her 80th birthday. I've been sharing this graphic for a couple weeks now. The larger theme for this season is going to be spiritual growth. How is it that we grow spiritually in our faith tradition? How is it that we grow as followers of Jesus Christ? And I'll just keep coming back to the same message. One way to approach it is to just work on doing these 5 things. That in the doing of these 5 habits, which are available for us to do here, then our hearts are going to grow in imitating Christ, in following Christ. To take time each week to worship God, to offer care to each other, to find ways to serve outside the walls of this congregation, out into the community and the larger world, to take time beyond Sunday morning to study this question, well, who is God? How do I understand God? And to share our faith, to help others establish a relationship with God, sharing our spirituality. Doing these 5 things can be simple if we keep in mind our simple needs. But they can be difficult when instead of being satisfied with where we're at, we start comparing ourselves with others, with what they have. When we do that, We end up, when I mean is, when we're more preoccupied with where others are in our lives, what's their level of success, how much stuff do they have, what's their paycheck, when we become preoccupied with that, we end up filling our hearts with those things. We go out and we try getting those things. And when we fill our hearts with the wrong stuff, we don't leave room for God to meet us there in our hearts. So John the Baptist, talking to the crowds, not mincing words, has advice for them. They're asking him, as he tells them, the Messiah is coming. He's telling them, prepare your hearts for receiving. Make room in your lives for the coming of the Messiah. And the crowd say, okay, what should we do? What do you want us to do? And he says to the crowds, if you have 2 coats, share with anyone who has none. And if you have food, do the same. In other words, John the Baptist is saying, it's okay to have a roof over your head. It's okay to have a coat to keep you warm. It's okay to have food to meet those basic needs. But if you have excess, then that excess is going to get in the way of your heart being open to receiving Christ when Christ comes. So the tax collectors, who are always worried about what other people think about them, they ask John the Baptist, well, what should we do to prepare for the coming of Christ? And he says to them, collect no more than the amount prescribed for you. In other words, he's saying, yeah, you got to make an income, but when you take more than you need, you end up hurting others and filling your heart with the wrong things, getting in the way of you receiving the coming Messiah. So looking on are the soldiers who are making sure that this crowd doesn't break out into a political party, and they get up the nerve to say to John the Baptist, what do we do? What should we as soldiers do? And he says to them, don't extort money by threats or false accusations. In other words, he's saying to them, power can be okay, but you really have to know how to manage your power so that you're not exploiting others, that you're not using your power and your privilege to take from others what you think that you need, leaving them without what they need. And the message that he has for all of them collectively is, be satisfied with what you have. It's a really simple message. Christ is coming. Open your hearts to make room for Christ by getting out of your hearts the stuff that's beyond what you need, so that there's room in your heart to be aware of when you meet Christ in the world. So that's the question John the Baptist is asking our brood. Do you know when it's enough? Do you know what's enough? Do you know what it looks like when it comes to food? When it comes to your money, when it comes to your power, when it comes to your bingo cards in this life, do you know when enough is enough so that you are not being distracted from having hearts open to growing spiritually, but instead are just cluttered with stuff that really is not important? What is your relationship with your needs? And what is your relationship with your desires and wants and expectations that come from every day, measuring ourselves over and against what others have and who they are? Again, the mechanics of this are really simple. When we focus on our needs, we're focusing on what our bodies are telling us. My stomach growls. My body's telling me that I need food. I start to shiver. My body's telling me that I'm cold and I need some warmth. Our needs are about listening to the body, the physical body that God has given to us. But our wants, our desires, come from comparing ourselves socially to others. What do they have? And how can I compete in this race, apparently, that we're having to beat one another? And when we do that, when we focus on the wants, we turn the tables on our bodies. And instead of listening to the signals that our bodies are giving to us, instead of listening to the message it's sending to us, we impose signals upon our body. We impose messages on our body. We tell our body, you need to be this so that I can have what I desire. And we end up alienating ourselves from this God-given gift called our bodies. How do you learn when it is enough? Think about children who are at a birthday party, whether it's in someone's home or at school. And the cake comes out, and all the children are they're pushing in. They want to have that first slice of cake. They're pushing other kids out of the way. What does the parent, the wise teacher do in that moment? They make it clear nobody's getting any cake until everybody figures out how to take turns and how to share. Right? We've been kids. We've had that experience ourselves. We know what it means from that wisdom of the parent or the teacher to teach the child to ground how they measure what is enough, to ground that in relationships. To move from, I want more, I want to be first at this cake, to looking beyond the competition and saying, these people have needs too. How am I going to share? We have needs and we have desires. And by being a follower of Jesus Christ, what we're being taught is to add another factor to this whole equation, and it's the God factor. By following Jesus Christ, we're reminded to measure what is enough, not based on what the neighbors have in their garage, but to measure what is enough based on how do I deepen my relationship with God. Let me end with this news event from the week. Many of you, of course, know that former President Jimmy Carter died recently. The contrast of Jimmy Carter's life to not only the average American or North American, but also to leaders, is an opportunity to learn about what it means to be satisfied. We all know that when Carter was president, and then when he lost the election into his second term to Ronald Reagan, the estimation of the American people was that he was not good material as a president. That we needed someone more powerful that could extend our power out into the world, not this kind and gentle, thoughtful man. Oh, how the decades have unfolded since then. Following his defeat in the presidential election, Jimmy Carter went about doing what he was already doing. Got involved even more deeply into Habitat for Humanity. And when you would see pictures of Jimmy Carter, you'd see him swinging a hammer. You'd see him out on the build site. You might see him, if you're in his church, teaching Sunday school on Sunday morning. Not pursuing power, but demonstrating what it means to be satisfied in your heart with doing what is gracious and what is giving. I think it's an excellent example for us. As we ask ourselves, can we empty our hearts of the unnecessary stuff, the junk, the things that we're really put there because we are chasing social expectations? And in emptying that, can we leave space for God to come into our hearts, and then we can discover, where is God leading me? Amen.